Hey everyone, it's Victoria with Nutrition by Victoria. I have a Master's of Science in Human Nutrition, and I'm here to share my knowledge with you so that you can achieve an effortlessly lean, fit, and healthy body for life without having to restrict what you're eating and eating all the carbohydrates that you want. Okay, so today's video is going to be about proper food combining for a flat belly. I've done quite a few flat belly tip videos in the past, but I really want to specify the importance of proper food combining, as I've had some questions in my coaching group about gas and bloating, and I know quite a few of you have are coming to my channel from following folks who do the starch solution. So I just thought I'd give you guys some tips in order to keep your belly nice and flat and to be relatively bloat and gas free. A little bit of bloating at the end of the day, you know, is going to be quite normal, but a lot of it comes down to just how long have you been doing this lifestyle for? How long have you been eating sufficient amounts of carbohydrates? So that will relate to your GI system strength. So why don't I just go over my basic flat belly tips and then we'll talk about proper food combining. So the first one is you want to make sure you're staying hydrated. You're drinking at least like 2 to 3 liters of water a day. You know, what I like to do is just have a water bottle with me all the time and just drink water as needed. It's really good for dental hygiene as well, because I do get questions about my teeth, especially eating all this fruit and sugar. You know, how is my teeth? My teeth are great. I go to the dentist every 6 months for cleaning, and I always get a clean bill of health. So it's really important just to stay hydrated and to brush your teeth and floss. Okay. Second would be, you know, exercise. You want to be doing like 30 minutes of moderate to low intensity cardiovascular exercise a day. This helps to just keep the GI system toned, okay? And that helps to create the flat belly aesthetic, okay? So doing some fitness. And this could be walking, jogging, biking, rebounding, whatever it is that you like to do. Swimming is a really good one as well. Hiking. You guys know what exercise is, so I'm not going to go into that, but find your favorite things and do it consistently. Okay, next would be making sure that you're eating a high carb, low fat, low protein diet. Well, I say low protein, but really it's sufficient protein, but in relation to your carbohydrate intake, it does, you know, the macronutrient ratios look lower than the carbohydrate intake. So we're talking about like an 80-10-10 diet, 80% carbs, 10% fat, 10% protein, or a 70% carbs, 15% fat, 15% protein, or 95-5 carbs to fat to protein. You get the idea. Eating that way gives your body the energy it needs in order to function properly. So we're also looking at eating sufficient calories, okay? Average woman needs about 2,400 calories a day. Average man about 3,000 calories a day. Of course, it's going to be give or take dependent on your activity level and your, you know, appetite, but you never want to dip as a woman below 2,000 and as a man below 2,500. Your body needs energy. Your cells need glucose in order to perform correctly and to create the energy that the rest of your body needs. And that goes for your GI system as well. The GI system needs carbohydrates in order to grow your microbiome and to keep it nice and healthy, as well as to fuel the rest of your cells and keep your GI tract nice and healthy as well. I do get questions about juice fasting. Problem with that is you need fiber, so that's the next thing we're going to talk about is fiber and the importance of eating enough fiber. We don't want to eat too much fiber and we don't want to eat too little fiber. We want to eat the right amount of fiber. So a lot of this is like Goldilocks, even when it comes to like sugar and how much should I add to my diet, right? It's dependent on you and how much you feel like you need. I always say make the foundation of your diet fruits and starches, which by default are going to contain, they're going to be high carb, low fat, they're going to be high in nutrient density, they're going to be high in fiber and water and volume. So make those the base of your diet, and then add your higher calorie density options to your foundational diet of your fruits and your starches, okay? So generally, like if it's a pyramid, you know, fruits and starches are here, then you're going up to sugars and vegetables, and then I put legumes and plant fats at the top because they're not foods that you have to eat, but if you want to, you can include them. It all depends on what your goals are, and you know, focusing on the fruits and starches, getting the majority of your carbohydrates from those, and then sugar to taste, and vegetables as desired as well. I do recommend eating vegetables every day, but just not going crazy with them. So there is such thing as eating too much insoluble fiber, and I hear this a lot actually from people that I work with, is I have all this bloating and GI issues related to eating all of these vegetables. I thought I needed to eat all these vegetables because aren't vegetables healthy, right? Vegetables are healthy, but they need to be eaten in proper ratios with your soluble fiber carbohydrates. So I recommend, again, basing the majority of your diet on fruits and starches, which are going to by default be higher in soluble fiber content versus insoluble fiber content. Generally, they have both, but the soluble fiber content of the fruits and the starches is going to be higher than the insoluble fiber content. Whereas with vegetables, typically, like we're talking about non-starchy vegetables here, their insoluble fiber content is going to be higher than their soluble fiber content. So you want to eat more of the fruits and starches and less of the vegetables. Look at vegetables like a side dish, really, to your high carbohydrate fruit or starch meal. Okay, so let's get into talking about food combining. Now, this is something that I will troubleshoot with my clients after they've been consuming a high carb, low fat diet already. So, number one, it's important to just eat high carb, low fat. And then we'll start troubleshooting from there. So after you are already eating your high carb, low fat diet, whether it's starch based or fruit based or a combination of the two, generally that's what most people are eating, we'll start to troubleshoot from there. So when it comes to food combining, we have to go according to the food that digests the fastest and eat that first. So when you're getting the majority of your calories from fruits and starches, if you want to move from a starch-based diet into a fruit-based diet, or you just like to eat a lot of fruit, or you're having issues with bloating after you eat fruit and you're eating a starch-based diet, then you're going to want to move into eating fruit first and then starch. The combining the two is not ideal in terms of proper food combining. Fruits and starches don't really go that well together because fruits digest really quickly and they can ferment if they're made to be kept in the GI tract for longer than they should be if they would have been eaten alone, okay? So when you eat a fruit and a starch, you're going to slow down the digestion of that fruit because the starch takes longer to move through the GI tract and break down in the system in order to release the sugars and nutrients because of the density of the starch molecules, okay? And the fiber, it's all intertwined, so it has to be broken up, whereas fruit already is moisture rich generally, and so its sugars are more readily available and it just ferments faster, right? The other thing about fruit is that it just works better when it's eaten by itself, especially like a mono meal. I don't know if you guys used to watch Fruity the Banana Girl, but she was the queen of mono meals. If you want a flat belly, she'd say eat a mono meal of fruit, and that's how I personally like to eat. I'll have juice in the morning, and then when I move into my fruit meal, I will eat just one fruit in a sitting, and then I'll wait a little bit and I'll eat as much of that fruit as I want, and then I'll move on into the next fruit. And then you can also go according to water content. So a lot of folks recommend, as well as myself, moving from foods that have a high water content to foods that have a lower water content through your day for keeping your belly nice and flat and to minimize bloating and any kind of GI distress, including like irritable bowel syndrome, or especially if you have some kind of sensitivity or disorder like that. Okay, so the other thing too is that I find if something contains sufficient amount of sugar, whether it's the juice on its own or something not being sweet enough, so you need to add some sugar to it. Sugar in itself is actually, it decreases the rate of fermentation. So if you are having a lot of bloating and you're just, you're eating your fruit by itself, then try adding some sugar to it, because sugar is a natural preservative. It combats fermentation. That's why when people would can foods in the past, they would add sugar to them or they would add salt to them because they act as preservatives. So in that regard, you can look at it like it is decreasing the rate of fermentation of this food, or neutralizing it is really what's going on. So I used to have a lot of issues with bloating when it came to eating fruit meals. So I would have to just make sure that what I was eating or drinking contained enough sugar, either naturally or something that I needed to add, in order for myself to be satisfied from the meal, but also to minimize GI distress. Another thing too, I find, for instance, blending bananas. I don't like to blend fresh bananas because I find that they oxidize a lot quicker and they end up having a weird taste to them, and it just doesn't digest well, and I end up with a lot of bloating. But if I freeze ripe bananas, then I don't have those issues. So frozen fruit can be a good option if you're experiencing a lot of bloating with eating fresh fruit, especially fruit that's being blended. Okay, and if you're buying like bottled smoothies and things like that, or even frozen fruit in general, like from the store, and you're not freezing it yourself, sometimes that stuff is not frozen where the fruit is actually ripe. So eating ripe fruit is another really good tip to minimize gas and bloating, because our system needs that sugar to be well formed in order for that food to be properly digested. And that's why I recommend adding sugar to your fruit meals if they're not sweet enough, because the sugar puts, adds to the meal what the meal should have had naturally if it was grown correctly. And this gets into talking about Brix value, which I'm not going to talk about too much, but Brix is basically the sugar content of a fruit in particular will dictate its nutrient density. And again, the sugar actually acts as a natural preservative, so those fruits will have a longer shelf life. So just goes back to, the importance of sugar for our system and making sure that we're getting enough of it. Because a lot of times when people go on like a exclusively fruitarian diet, they will end up under eating on carbohydrates because they're not able to source out, high quality, high Brix value fruit that has enough sugar content. I really like to eat dates because dates are, one of those fruits that, because they can be cultivated after they've reached peak ripeness and their sugar content is really formed, then they can be dried and, shipped all over, and there's minimal risk of, the fruit going bad, even though I will get like a moldy or, a date every once in a while that has like black stuff in it. But getting back to food combining, you want to eat your fruit first, add sugar to it if it's not sweet enough, and that will help to minimize the bloating as well. And then move into your starches. So as soon as I eat my starches for the day, I do not eat any more fruit. If I do, it just ends up being a bloaty mess. The fruit really just does a lot better in your system when you eat it by itself. Uh, so I generally recommend eating a raw till 4 or fruit till 4 type diet where you're getting in all of your sweet fruit during the day for breakfast and for lunch as your meals, and then you're moving into your starches for the evening hours. I generally will have, you know, 2 fruit meals during the day and 2 starch meals at night. So I eat like 4 times a day. Actually, I'm usually just eating all day long because I prefer to have smaller meals but more frequently. So generally around like 4 or 5, I'll have some rice, and then 7 o'clock I'll have some potatoes, and I'll have vegetables with both of those meals as well. You can check out my What I Eat in a Day videos and see that that's how my food eating progresses, is from fruit to starches. It's what I find to be the most ideal way to eat. You can also do raw till noon or fruit till noon. So you're eating a fruit breakfast and then you're eating starches through the rest of your day. It's really personal preference, but it's the ultimate way to eat in terms of keeping your belly nice and flatulence free, gas free, bloating free, nice and flat. Because when you're having issues with your GI system, it can be really unnerving and uncomfortable, and your focus goes on that for the whole rest of the day because you're just feeling so blah, and you're like, whoa, well, what can I do to like help eliminate this situation because it's so uncomfortable? I can relate completely to that because it was my primary like reason for finding this way of eating. Was I was looking for a way to calm my GI system down that was just reacting to everything. So by following the tips that I provided in this video, I've been able to maintain a flat belly effortlessly through the majority of my days, every single day, despite having 3 babies and being 6 months postpartum now. My belly is relatively flat all day long until I get to my big starch meal, and that's because the food just sits longer in my system. So I eat fruit all day, digests fast, moves through my system quickly, keeps my belly nice and flat. Then once I get into my starches, just because they digest slower, then I'm left with more of a food baby. Go to bed like Buddha, wake up like Gandhi is pretty much how this works. Okay, leave any questions or comments down below. I hope that all makes sense, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.